So I'll try as much as possible to link the performance management system to the strategic vision of the organization, what is reflected in the strategic plan. I have almost 60 slides, but I'll go through very fast and in fact leave out those that I feel are not important. So as I've had you guys getting my profile, it sounds more than myself, because what we are going to do here is we are going to share together my experience, and I will also allow you guys to share your experience. So today we are going to cover performance management, and I'm going to give an overview of where we started performance management, what performance management is, the processes involved in performance management, what effective performance management is, the guiding principles of performance management, components of performance management, the tools that we can use to make performance management successful, and then performance metrics, the goal setting process. Then thereafter now, I'll take you through options that you can use to ensure that your performance management process is practical. Thereafter, we'll go to the third stage, which will be rewards, the type of rewards that you can give, PIP, performance improvement plan, and sanctions. I will start first by giving an evolution of performance management. This is important so that we can gauge ourselves and get to know where we are. So in early 1900s, performance management was about annual confidential reports aimed at controlling behavior of employees. So these reports used to have attendance, disciplinary. So you write a performance
that was successful, completed was
so you,
which is fully operational. And,
Benjamin, unmute. So if you are right now writing performance reports showing attendance and disciplinary reports, then you are in the 1900s. Host, can you mute Benjamin?
For making a background noise.
And this head.
Madam Vera, can you mute everyone?
Okay. So if you're still preparing reports that show attendance, disciplinary reports, you are in the 1900s. Then thereafter, performance reports went to only giving adverse remarks. So you write a performance report, you tell people that the worker is lazy, the worker is undisciplined, the worker comes to work late. So if you are still doing that, then you are in the 1950s. 1960s now, there was an improvement, because this is where now management by objectives started, and where now we started goal setting or target setting. Then in 1970s, there was a lot of criticism of performance management, and cases were taken to court. So as a result, organizations now started what we call psychometrics. They were measuring mental capacities of staff, their intelligence, their educational achievement. So if you have done masters in business administration and another person has done a bachelor's in business administration, then the person with the masters was considered better and rated highly. That's in the 1970s. 1980s, now we had holistic measures. This is where now competence, other than performance, competence was also captured in appraisals. So things like communication as a competence was appraised, teamwork was appraised, conflict resolution was appraised. Modern day, we are using now multiple sources. We are using multiple sources, and that will be my IPAS, that we use multiple sources. We don't just use one tool and then we forget about the other. So the key emphasis here will be about the 360 degrees feedback tool. Now, when is performance management necessary in an organization? When you start hearing your employees say, we need more resources, we need more computers, we need more tools, it means, yes, you could add the tools, but if they are not performing, then you'll be at zero. So, and that's why now you need to create checklists that are going to ascertain that these resources are needed. When there is need for universal competencies, the competencies that I talked about, teamwork, policy development, and what have you, there is need now to align staff competencies with job competencies. And that can only be achieved through a performance management system. And then when there's need for greater levels of transparency and productivity, when you need people to produce more, when you need people to be accountable for what they are doing, then it means that you need a performance management in the organization. People will also like to be recognized for productivity. If you have to recognize people for productivity, then that in itself means that you have to come up with a reward system. Has to be connected to a performance management system. So having said that, maybe now we share. What do we think is performance management? What is performance management? Somebody can share. You raise up your hand and you share what you think performance management is. Participants. Any volunteer? We have 50 participants. Okay, if there is no volunteer, generally we can say performance management is an ongoing process. So if you make performance management an annual process, that is not performance management. It is bound to fail. It should be a continuous process involving feedback from employees. It could be on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, but it should not be an annual process. It should be continuous. And the aim of performance management is to ensure that competences are enhanced, confidence is enhanced, and capabilities of employees are also enhanced. Please note the wording there. Capabilities are not capacities. Performance management is supposed to enable capabilities, ability to do, other than capacity, which is now what was being emphasized in the 1950s. Education, certificates, and what have you. Now, like we said, we are supposed to link performance management to the strategic intentions of an organization. So what usually happens is that we start with the strategic plan, and out of that strategic plan, we develop corporate objectives, which are now institutional. The corporate, organizational-wide objectives. Then from the organizational-wide objectives, we derive functional and departmental objectives. From the functional, we get now units or team objectives. And then from team objectives now, we get individual objectives. So when we are talking about a performance management system, or when we are talking about target setting, those targets should be derived from the strategic plan. So for an effective performance management to happen, the employees have to own the process. If employees are not owning the process, it is bound to fail. In fact, in quite a number of places, performance management is failing simply because of employees not owning the process. And then, as a supervisor, the person who is going to evaluate or the people manager, you should ensure that you partner in the process so that you own part of that process. The leadership of the organization, the CEO and what have you, are supposed to champion that process, while HR is supposed to support the process. That's the only way to ensure performance management works. So like we said, it should be an ongoing process. Then the expectations must be understood by the employee. The people manager must also understand them so that those particular expectations are mutually understood. They should be explicit, and that's why we'll talk about SMART. Now, let me get through performance management tools. We've already talked about management by objectives, which is now something that happened in the 1980s, because right now we said we are on 360 degrees feedback. But like we said, it is important to have a hybrid of all these tools in your performance management system. Do not just use one. When you use one, like when you use management by objectives, and then you don't do rating, then you're bound to fail. When you don't do a 360 degrees feedback, and you only decide that the person who is going to evaluate will be the people manager or the supervisor, then it is bound to fail. So we all know what MBO is. It involves setting objectives, discussing those objectives periodically, controlling a bit of controlling, involving monitoring, and then at the end, evaluating the targets that have been set. So this is a graphical presentation of MBO. We start by defining the objectives, we check the progress of the objectives, we collect the results. Is someone trying to? Are you getting me?
Yes, you are getting him, senior.
Okay, okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. Then we've also talked about the 360 feedback, which is very important, because if you have a performance management system.
Mr. Kenga, were you trying to share your screen? Because we are not able to see your screen.
You can't see my screen.
Yes, Bwana Naomi, how are you? Nimepokea salamu. Asante bwana, hata niko kwa online meeting. Naendelea.
To see the screen.
Could the host kindly put the participants, please?
Can
Yeah,
you?
Vera,
Can
Vera, can
you
you assist?
see it? Can you see it?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you.
So, like I was saying, 360 degrees feedback, which now ensures there is a cycle of influence that now evaluates the employee. So we have the manager evaluating the employee, peers evaluating the employee, customers evaluating the employee, and subordinates, or what we call direct reports, also evaluating the employee. Behavioral anchored rating. This is what now brings the quantitative benefits in a performance appraisal process. We are able to compare employee performance with specific behavioral examples that are anchored in numerical ratings. I guess we've all seen the Likert scale. This is where now it is applicable. So you have a rating that below expectations, for example, that's a 1, needs improvement could be a 2, meets expectations a 3, above expectations 4, and then exceeds expectations is 5. That's what behavioral anchored rating involves. For those who have done CHRP, I'm very sure that you've done human resource accounting, where now we try to find the relative worth of human resources in terms of costs and value. So this tool can also be used to know the performance of an employee. If we use less costs and give more, then that means we are doing well. And that's what I was explaining graphically. So it's a comparison between the expenditure incurred in creating and updating human resources vis-a-vis now the yield generated. Now there are a few metrics. Now this is where we should keep or we should be very keen. There are a few metrics that we can use to measure performance in organizations. One is employee productivity index, 2, employee feedback and rating, learning and development, participation and completion. Winfred, employee net promoter score, and performance management system efficiency. Let me start with employee productivity index. And this is a metric that you can use to measure performance of employees. Like I said, right now we use multifaceted tools to ensure that we capture the performance of an employee. So an employee productivity index is calculated by dividing the total output by the effort cost put in an activity. So if, for example, you have 10 employees that take 2 hours, but produce 500 pairs of trousers in a factory, the productivity index will be 20 divided by 500. Or, no, sorry, 500 divided by 20, which will give you now an index of 25. So the higher the index, the better the productivity. Then we have employee feedback and ratings. This majorly is applied to managers. Managers are the ones that now are rated, and where now we get feedback from employees. So let's say that an organization requires an employee each month, or a manager each month, to engage in 2 meetings. But a manager so let's say that an organization requires each manager to engage in 2 feedback conversations per employee each month. A manager only conducts 8 conversations in a month instead of the prescribed 10. So it will mean that the employee's metric achievement is 8 divided by 10, because you are supposed to conduct 10, but you conducted 8. So 8 out of 10, to get a percentage, it will be 80%. So your rating will be at 80% in terms of feedback between yourself and the manager. Are we together? So like when you are rating a manager, the employee will was the feedback you received helpful, which now will be rated between 1 to 5. So this usually is used on people who are supervisors of the others. You will discover that as we progress in performance appraisals, later on we'll not be doing appraisals. As HR practitioners, we'll only be concerned about discussions. So this discussion can be rated, and we get to know whether we feedback from the manager to the employees and from the employees to the managers, and we rate the same. You can also, like we have what we call the learning participation rate, which is defined as the percentage of employees participating in optional learning. So what happens in this case is that you decide to have an optional training program in the organization. If most staff participate, then that means that employees want to learn and grow. If you make learning programs compulsory, automatically people are going to attend because they are compulsory. But when you make them optional, but people still attend, then there is also the other element of learning completion rate. Employees who have successfully finished up. So to people lower number of people okay. So learning completion rate indicates the number of employees who successfully finished a specific training versus the total number that only signed up or registered for it. So when you call people to register for trainings, thereafter now you can measure whether there was a higher learning completion rate given the numbers that took up the training up to the end. Then there is also the employee net promoter score. Susan. There is also the employee net promoter score, which is also a performance management metric that compares the number of loyal employees that we call promoters versus the number of employees who are planning to leave that we call detractors. Now, other than conducting an exit questionnaire, it is important that we get to gauge whether employees want to stay with an organization or not. So the first step in this process is to roll out a survey with a question: how likely are you to recommend your workplace to a friend, family member, or a peer? Now, the scale is put on a rating of 0 to 10, 0 being not likely at all, and 10 being extremely. Once employees submit their ratings, the next step is to calculate the number of promoters. Those are those who scored between 9 and 10. And then we have those who are passive. Those are those who submit scores of 7 to 8. And then now detractors are those between 0 to 6. So how do we calculate it? The formula of employee net promoter score is number of promoters divided by total number of respondents times 100 minus number of detractors divided by total number of respondents times 100. Then you get now your employee net promoter score to see whether your employees are promoters or detractors. So for example, among a pool of 50 respondents, there are 20 promoters and 10 detractors. The rest are passives. That means 20 are passive. So that will mean your promoters are 20. So it's 20 divided by 50 times 100. 10 who are detractors divided by 50 respondents times 100, which now will be 40 minus 20%, which will give you 20%. It means that your promoters in the organization will only be, or your employee net promoter score will be 20%. So This usually is a metric to track organizational success, as it is an indicator of whether employees are happy with the workplace or they're not happy with the workplace. Then we have performance management system efficiency. This is usually to measure whether your performance management system is efficient or not. It measures the time and effort needed to perform tasks, such as now reviews of performance management, the feedback, the surveys, after implementing a management performance process or solution. So this helps in improving the performance management systems, so that if you see that a manual process is not working, you could now go to an electronic process. And even when you adopt an electronic process, you could still now measure its performance through now the performance management efficiency, so that you look at whether you are reducing more time in carrying out like reviews or feedbacks, or time now is becoming more. Now let me move to another part, which now is the goal setting. We all know that we are supposed to have clear goals, and that's the target setting, and that's where we start. We usually start at goal setting and development of the plans, discussions between the employee and the people manager or supervisor. Then thereafter, mid-year, we do a review, or what here I've referred to as mid-year calibration. Then at the end, we have an year-end review. This is the ideal, but like I said, it is important to make sure that a performance management system is continuous. Now, what is important in goal setting is, when you are setting goals, you look at the results to be achieved. What results will be achieved? But now, ensure that you match those results with competency demonstration. You have to match the results to competence demonstration. I'm trying to give you here a model of an organizational competence model, because if we have to have employee competences, as a HR, you should come up with organizational competences, from which now you can capture and ensure that you cascade the same now to the people, to the individual. Now, I tried to come up with an organizational competence model. Of course, different organizations can have different organizational competency models. This mostly is derived from a university. Having worked in a university, we thought as a university that we have an organizational competence model where now we are going to, when we are goal setting, we can pick areas that we as an organization can concentrate on. So when we talk about value creation, we can pick something on diversity and inclusion. Like at the university, it is very important to have partnerships and collaborations. So when you're setting goals, you ensure that that particular competence of partnership and collaboration is captured in the targets that you're setting for the employee. Other than that, we can have now business acumen, we can have strategic agility, decision quality, and accountability, amongst all these other competencies. Then other competencies that one should have when you are at the university are emotional intelligence, employee engagement, and then you should also have high performance teams, so you can pick it from that area. Because when you are now setting targets, other than those that are involved in the actual tasks or the job descriptions of the employee, it is important that you also capture competences that this employee should have in achieving the vision of the organization. For example, if you are preparing somebody for a leadership position, and then that leadership position involves preparation of board papers. So when you are setting targets in terms of competences, it is important that you set a target that is on preparation of board papers. Types of goals that we can have in performance management. We have what we call job responsibility goals, which now touch on the job responsibilities and create measurable components in the performance management process. Then we have stretch. Stretch are those that showcase growth in current role while gaining imperative skills. And that's what I was talking about. If you are preparing somebody for leadership position, ensure that in your targets, you have what we call stretch opportunity goals. Then there are also new initiative goals. New initiative goals are those that involve a new project or a new program or a new process. Like you could ask an employee in HR who is IT savvy to develop a recruitment module. So that will be a new active. Then there are what we call the team-based goals that involve teams. We all know about SMART, so I will not get into that. So when you're setting goals, ensure that they are clear. When you're setting goals, ensure that they can be measured. Ensure that you review your goals with the employee frequently, not only quarterly, it could even be weekly, so as to make adjustments where needed, and also to ensure that you are on track. Now, I tried to have an example of how now you can have a SMART objective, and how again you can develop objectives from the strategic or the corporate objectives of an organization. So I have taken an example of HR. In your strategic plan, you have a strategic objective to attract, recruit, and retain qualified and professional employees. So that is the company-wide objective in terms of human resource management. Now, as a HR department, if you have to take that bit on attraction, recruitment, and retention of qualified and professional employees, it will mean that you develop the competencies of staff. So how now in HR are you going to set an objective or a goal for the person in charge of training? So the individual goal will be to train 100 electrical technicians in machine diagnostics. So maybe in your strategic plan, you have indicated that within 5 years, I'm going to take electrical technicians in machine diagnostics. So you can see if you take 100, it means that that is something that is achievable. That is something that is attainable. Another thing that you look at to ensure that your goals are attainable is by ensuring that you have a budget in place to take care of that training. Because you could decide to train 100 people, but you do not have a budget. So now, having gotten an individual team objective, to ensure that it becomes very easy for you to measure, it is important that you indicate the milestones that this person will undertake so as to achieve that individual objective. So like for my case, I took, of course, with the thinking of working in government. One, to ensure that a training of like electrical technicians takes place, you have to develop training specifications. These training specifications are what now will be used by procurement to prepare a tender document. Then I know there are other procurement processes in the process, but as HR will be invited for the evaluation because you are the specialist. Then thereafter, you will have an inception meeting with the selected consultant. Then after that, you will do the training. Then after the training, there will be evaluation. Then after the evaluation, you have a closing meeting with the consultant. Of course, there could be many other milestones, but this is just but an example. So it is important that you break down the objective for it now to be smart and get to see whether this employee is performing or not. Then you could have indicators like developing training specifications. You could have a training specifications document. That now will be your indicator. Part of the training of employees has not happened, or all of the training of the employees has not happened, because that is the first process that is supposed to happen. But again, you can see I've used proposal because maybe you have inside facilitators in the organization who can do the training. So if you have inside facilitators, then the indicator here will be training proposal. Then evaluation report will also be another indicator. Minutes will be the other indicator. Training will be the other, training report will be the other indicator. Maybe a training evaluation report will be another one. And then minutes for the closing meeting. Now, out of all these, you will be in a position now to know whether the person is below expectations, needs improvement, meets expectations, above expectations, or exceeds expectations. Now, if, for example, the person was supposed to train 100 and he trains or she trains 150, 150 most likely will be exceeding expectations. But if he trains 100 and you had indicated 100, then it means meets expectations. So the BE there means below expectations, NE means needs improvement. You remember the behavioral rating that I talked about. This is where now it applies. And you can see there is also a time frame. it is important that you indicate a time frame so that if the employee is able to train these people before April 2023, this is not specific, sorry, it should even have had a date, then it means that the employee will be above expectations because he will have achieved that particular objective before the time frame. So it is very important when you are setting objectives, you ensure that they are smart so that you can measure them, have the indicators, have the milestones, then you will be in a position to rate it. As I said, it is also important to have the time frame. Another thing that you're supposed to have when you're doing performance management, you come up with a checklist, because without a checklist, you will not know whether you have done all the required things or not. So when you're doing the plan, maybe the first thing will be review the job descriptions with the people manager, and then you update as appropriate. You review the functional goals and the team goals. Then you go to assessment, you have a checklist, you identify whether individuals' goals align with the team and functional goals. You review organizational competences, the ones that I talked about. So it is important that you come up with organizational competences. And in most cases, and this is a mistake that we do, at times you would see targets set for an employee, and there are 7 targets. When you look at 7 targets, to tell you the truth, it becomes very hard for the person to achieve. It is better off that you set around 3 to 5 targets, so that by mid-year, if the person has already achieved, then you can calibrate and add more targets. So these targets ensure they relate to the employee's current roles. Also ensure that they capture the future roles that the employee will serve. Then there is now calibration, the discussions between the employee and the people manager. The employee there can share, you can discuss, then you can create now a development plan where there is need for development in particular job summary, which captures everything. So when you are doing a tool, ensure that there is that profile. Then you get to the goal setting, ratings, and what have you. So like I was talking, like I was saying, when you are having a tool that is supposed now to capture everything in the organization, ensure that the first thing is the role objective, that job profile summary, which now describes the primary goals and contribution of the role to the functional and organizational mission. So ensure at this level that the employee's job profile is accurate. And where it is not accurate, adjust accordingly. Then thereafter now, from the job profile, you can get now to see the job responsibilities. And from those job responsibilities now, you can indicate the annual goal for the employee. Having indicated the annual goal, describe, putting now here the milestones, the expected results. Now, thereafter, now the form can have media calibration, which is media review, where the employee can self-assess and the manager can also evaluate the employee. Given those ratings that we have talked about, which are below expectations, needs improvement, meets expectations, above expectation, and exceeds expectation. Now, having done the media calibration, you could also at the end now again rate when we have now the end year review. Like I said, it is also important to put competences. Like if the job of the person involves policy development, it is important that you give that particular competence, and then you indicate the relation of that competence to the job role. So at the end, you will also now do a review. You will also evaluate the same. So in a good performance evaluation framework, it is important that you cover the targets and competencies. This now here involves now the performance evaluation, where now you could put your remarks, the employee also puts his remarks, then the employee signs.
Turudishe.
Hello? These are the rates that I was talking about. We will share this slide. Mine does not have, it's not protected, because this is information that we can all share. I'll give you this this presentation. So like we have exceeds performance, that's the highest, above expectations, meets expectations, needs improvement, and then below expectations. And as we said, we can put numerical numerical indicators on the same, so that it becomes easy for us to rate performance. I also have another illustration on Workday business process. This is just but an illustration. Now, like for Workday, this is actually a module that captures talents in the organization and what have you. So we could have the goal as architect and implement Workday recruitment. So the description of this particular goal will be manage projects and engage stakeholders to ensure design meets talent acquisition needs of the organization. What are the supports? Introduce new Workday modules at organizations. Now, what will be the milestones? You could also even put time frames for the milestones. So the first milestone will be define requirements. The second milestone will be complete design. The third milestone will be test and update the module. And then last now is to launch the module to the organization. Now, we clearly say that when you are setting objectives, have between not more than 5. If you have more than 5 targets, it means that it will be difficult for the employee to achieve the goals. So we could have another goal here, an example: effectively manage performance. So the description of this is act with purpose to enhance competence, confidence, and capabilities. So learn Workday business processes, leverage Workday reporting business processes, seek assignments that stretch beyond comfort zone, means volunteer to participate in annual recruitment processes. This is still on the same things that I was explaining. Or throughout the process, there should be feedback between the people manager and the employee. Like I said, performance management system is supposed to be a continuous process. This is the review process, receiving feedback. Then at the end, the employee starts the review. Ensure that the employee reviews himself first, the manager reviews, then you sit together and discuss. You sit together and discuss, meaning that the employee should prepare himself for the performance appraisal during calibration, media calibration, and the end year review. So the employee can do his own review, can reflect on the questions that maybe the manager will ask, then have now supporting documents. Like we said, there should be indicators. Come with those supporting documents so that now when we sit with the manager and having had the manager now doing revising or having a look at the job profile, then it will be very easy for the manager to discuss with employee. Then now you sit and you rate, you agree with the employee, because this is what you are supposed to have. You have it. How much have you done? Do you see this? This will now be the rating. Then the employee has to acknowledge by signing off that discussion. Now, your timelines, when you are preparing a performance management process, ensure that you have a plan. Like I've decided here to have a plan on how this performance management process will be. So we are saying that the goal setting on the target setting, and I'm talking from the knowledge of August of July. So before 1st of July, you ensure that employees have completed target setting by June 13. Then the manager and the employees sit and agree on those targets, and the manager now approves on June 27. Then on July 1st, you start implementation. Then media calibration. Media calibration, employee now completes the media self-assessment by December 15. Then the manager sits with the employee, they have discussions, and the manager does the evaluation by December 24th. Then when it comes now to the end year review, you have it now, end year review. Remember, by June 13th, you're supposed to start another cycle. So employee completes end year self-assessment by May 12th. Manager evaluates and sits together with the employee by May 16th. Then by June, again, you have now the rating prior to the new phase, so that now merits and rewards, and if there are any sanctions, they are done before June 30th, because by 1st of July, you will be starting another cycle. So that now, if there are any bonuses to be given, if there are any recognitions to be made, then that is done before June 30th. Management system without, it's very important that once management system to rewards. If you don't do that, like we say, employees are supposed to own the process, and if they don't see any benefit, what is it in them, then they will not own the process. And in most cases, we fail as HR managers because we have a performance management system that is not tied to rewards. It could be as simple as writing a letter of recognition or writing a letter of commendation to the employee. That only needs a rim of full stops, good language, and a printer. Those are things that employees appreciate. But we all know that the best, and as Africans, the best is usually financial rewards such as bonuses, the 13th salary, and what have you. Now, what happens if the employee has not performed? What happens? You reward if he has performed. But if he has not performed, the last resort is usually to put that person under a performance improvement plan. So I have come up here with a template of how a performance improvement plan can look like. You can have all these details indicating the employee, the manager, the time that the review will take place. Then you have set your goals. For each goal, if there is any goal that the person has not achieved, this is where now you can capture. Now the performance issue, like you remember the weekday, it was architect and implement workday recruitment. What was the expectation? We all expected this employee to exceed expectations. What type of support now were we supposed to give this person to ensure that he or she met this particular performance target? Having weekly meetings, and then having some sort of training and many other initiatives that we can take. Now, what was the assessment? The evaluation. The evaluation, the total evaluation is that this person met expectations. So we decided that this was the objective. The expectation was to exceed. We had meetings, training to ensure that he improves his performance. But in our assessment, we have discovered that this person now has met. So he's still below the exceed expectations, or he's still below above expectations. So when you're doing the review now, you indicate initially this person needed improvement, but now he has met expectations. So what has he done and what has he not done? You could write that he defined the requirements, he completed the design of the module, but did not test the module and did not launch the module. So this now will be the performance improvement plan, meaning that this person needs a further performance improvement plan because there are two milestones that were not met. One, the module was not tested, and two, the module was not launched. So like I said, they are used to provide now a clear and measurable road of expectations. given that this employee did not meet the targets and needs improvement so as to have better performance. Then you have a personal improvement plan has not met. Another one, after some time, you will need now to have sanctions. And the sanctions will include warnings and termination. As the HR, this area ensure that you closely monitor so that you don't land yourself with issues in the court. Now, I'm coming to the end. What are the future and the current performance management trends? Performance ratings that below expectations, needs improvement, above expectations, exceeds expectations. But with time, those ratings will die. Why? Because work right now is being done in teams. And other than that, it means that if it is being done in teams, you could be in HR, but you have an assignment with procurement. And in procurement, it means that the manager or the people manager does not have control over the events in the other department. So given that, and that work now involves collaboration, you will discover that performance ratings will disappear because they inhibit collaboration. Because when you rate people, people will want just to do what is going to give them higher rates. Then the future is about discussions. I'll be talking about those discussions, coaching the employee, mentoring the employee, counseling the employee continuously. And this means that the media calibration and annual reviews will die out. Instead, we'll be having like daily and weekly targets. This more so because we have the generation Y. The generation Y want targets that they can achieve immediately. They don't want to wait until media. They don't want to wait until the end of the year. Then another trend is on competence development. Concern will be for capabilities. Concern now is whether we can do. Not that I have a master's, then I can do. Can the person do? That will be the major thing. Not that I have a master's in business administration, I have a bachelor's. I could be having a certificate, but I have the capability. You have the capacity, but I have the capability. So now, the interest, and we all know, interest now, competence development. For those who would like to read more on this, you can make reference to why more and more companies are ditching performance rating, which is an article that appeared in Harvard Business Review of 2015. If you Google, I'm very sure that you will get that article. Ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the end of my presentation. Madam, maybe I'll take a few questions. But Madam Moderator.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bwana Mkurugenzi.
I've come to the end of my...
Yes. Yes, Kenga, thank you very much. That was very informative. I hope people didn't get scared with the numbers. Because, yes, tunaogopa ile HR accounting, yes, HRP. Okay, now let me invite questions. People can send questions from the chat, and then the facilitator can take as you send the questions. Thank you very much, Rahmawat. John Maina, Santeni Sana, yes. Any question? It can be typed to everyone. Or if somebody wants to explain the question.
Yeah,
yes.
like I can see Alande is in the house and he's a guru in performance management, given that that is what he practices every day. So he can give us other perspective. I'm looking at the questions, I can see only comments on muting. Yes, that was not kind to the presenter. There was a lot of background noise,
yes,
including where I'm seated.
I see. Who wants to have a go? I see 2 participants raising a hand and then they disappear. Alande, you want to speak?
Yes, thank you so much. And Ukenga, am I loud and clear?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. I think Kenga has done justice to this subject. Mine comes in terms of a comment and also maybe a question as I do so. So there is something we call performance management philosophy. I think in our performance management process, we need to also ask ourselves, what is our philosophy of performance? So like where we are looking at 3 things. What is it that you want to do? The what, the how, and the impact. So that if you deliver whatever you want to deliver at the end of the performance, it doesn't have an impact in the business. For instance, you have given some targets to marketing, and part of it is that they need additional staff. So HR will commit to recruit 50 people. So you recruit 50 people 2 months to the end of the performance period. The people come, orientation at the end of it, it does not have an impact on that, but the HR will score 100 on that. So the performance management philosophy is important. Another thing that I think we need also to put more emphasis on our performance management policy and procedures. So there are certain several things, like you're talking about the rating protocol. What is the policy saying about if you meet expectation, if you are above or you are below expectation, what does it mean? That should come very well in the performance management policy and the procedure. Something to add on the smarter goal. The goal should not just be smarter, but smart but smarter. We normally add an S before the S, and also at the end of it, there is an A. So the S is that your goal should be stretching. What do I mean? What I'm saying is that you should not start something that you achieve within 2 months. So you have 12 months to roam around saying that you have actually met your target. So they should be stretching. And then the last A to add is that your goals should be aligned to the organization. So you should not come with any other goal, but it has to be aligned to the business. About consequence, I'll finish in the next 2 minutes, about consequence management in terms of placement or PIP placement. We should not say it's a tool for last resort, but this is a way of helping employees to turn around their performance. Then finally, I want to talk about what we call calibration. Basically, it's also known as validation process. In the validation process, what you are doing is that a staff has scored themselves exceeding expectation or above expectation, or if you are using the numerics, maybe 90%. The validation process is simply to confirm that whatever scores you have given yourself, is it backed by evidence of performance or evidence of achievement? Then that is, you say, when you do that, you are talking about you have carried out a validation exercise. So I think let me leave it at that. But thanks once again to Kenga for delivering this this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. CS Alande, thank you very much. That was very informative. Anybody else who wants to contribute to today's discussion?
I see Janet.
Chair, is that you?
I can see the hand of Janet Mahenia.
Yeah, thank you. So first and foremost, thank you, Mr. Kenga, for that presentation. I had a question, and of course, I'll open it up to whoever. More so on PAP, in terms of, let me just give a scenario. Assuming you have, let's say, 6 objectives, and then out of the 6 objectives, your KPIs rather, during your end year review, in a situation where maybe a rating is from 1 to 5, with 1 being a higher and 5 being a low rating. So out of the 6 objectives, let's say you only managed to do well on 3. And then the other 3, you don't necessarily do well on them. And then we have the final rating, which places you at a very low rate, say an assumption of 4. Does that mean that the 3 KPIs or the 3 objectives that you do not basically do well on will move you to the PIP process? Or it will basically mean that the initial 6 objectives that you actually set you'll basically be placed on PAP on the 6 objectives. And also, I'm not sure whether, Mr. Kenga, you spoke on probation. I think also it was a bit important to talk about probation, which also is under the umbrella of performance. But in case not, I will appreciate maybe if at some other time we will discuss on matters probation and probation extension. So that's my question. Also, maybe another question in terms of objective setting for staff. We have scenarios whereby when you engage a new staff, well, of course, they've gone through the advert that was initially placed, maybe in your career site. But then again, when they report and they're asked to do the objectives, they're not necessarily based on the advert that had gone out. So how do you handle such a situation? Over.
Okay, let me start with the last question. Why should you have in your maybe job description manual that you don't make use of? Because you see, what you put in your career site is what should be in your job description manual. And you cannot have something outside that. Yes, you can, but it should be related to the job. It should be related to the job. So that means there is a disconnect between what happens, and that in itself will tell you that there will be performance issues if you start now bringing in foreign things that are not even reflected in your job description manual. On the issue of probation, briefly, for I believe all of us, unless you are working elsewhere, I don't know where, but during probation, we gauge the performance of employees. So it is very important that you set specific targets for the employee who is on probation. And it's good that, it's good to learn. Like CS Alande now has talked about SMASA. Even if these are things that I was saying that you must align it to now the vision of the organization, but you can see now he's brought in that aspect. So during probation, you have to be, the targets have to be set for you. They have to be set for you. Then ensure that whatever you do is within the law. Do not now start extending probation and probation, then in the process, because the person is not performing, because you need to put the person on a performance improvement plan, then you break the law, you will find yourself in problems because the performance issues in court, in the Employment and Labor Relations Court, are proving to be very difficult. So ensure that you are within the law. But it's true that when an employee joins, ensure that you have objectives that are smart, so that the employee now, everything, whatever achievement of these objectives is supposed to be for the good of the employee. Now you said this employee achieved 3, 6 objectives, 3 not achieved. My feeling, maybe somebody could have a different interpretation, is we had that rating. As far as I'm concerned, this person has only met a half. So this meets expectations, but it is not above expectation, and it is not exceeding expectations. So if a person has met expectations, there is still a problem, because we want people to be at least above expectations. From that rating that I have, I know there are some people who have different ratings that now could be something else. But as far as I'm concerned, at 3, this person also needs to be put under a performance improvement plan. If anything, if there were 6, did not meet 3, then ensure that now under that performance improvement plan or the next cycle, you give now the person the 3 other objectives. See whether the person can achieve. And as we said, during the performance improvement plan, there are supposed to be discussions on how the employee can develop competences, or the employee can have some trainings, the employee can learn a bit of coaching, a lot of weekly meetings or daily meetings between you and yourself. I'm happy that I was a teacher, that when a student is not performing, it's the same thing. You pay attention to that employee. You sit most of the times with that employee so that that employee can catch up with the rest. And even when you are telling the other students, I'm using the analogy of students, if the other students now are being given 10, you will not give the person who is weak 10, because this is individual learning. You could decide that let him do 5. Then do that monitoring. In the process, you'll discover after doing 5, now you can give 6, and the employee or the student now can perform better. So as far as I'm concerned, this person also here needs to be put. And a performance improvement plan does not mean that, like Alande said, it's not really a tool of the last resort. It is a tool that is used to ensure that an employee now meets the highest standards in terms of rating. That's my interpretation. Maybe somebody else can add or even subtract from what I've said. Any other person? I guess we have around 19 minutes to finish. Any addition?
Yes, anyone wants to have a go?
Martin? Okay.
Hey, mine is. Hello.
Yes.
Mine is, how do you like, how do you embrace this performance? Like, I want to make it as like a culture, performance driven culture organization. So my question is, how do you introduce this performance based culture to an institution where maybe like to a startup? Have you gotten my my question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is no formula to that. In quite a number of organizations, performance management systems have failed because employees have resisted them. Okay. And like I said, one factor is, there is that aspect, the culture of what is it in me. If people do not see value in the process, then they will not embrace performance management culture. Like you had Alande said, it is very important that you communicate the processes. It is very important that you communicate the procedures involved, so that now people can see the value in it. It is just like the performance of schools. You can see that schools are competing simply because when a school is mentioned in the newspaper, then the other school feels bad. That the best school last time was Nyamasaria. So, of course, the alliances, the Mangus, the Masenos, the Marandas are also working very hard to ensure, just to ensure that their name appears in the papers. So that recognition of employees, those rewards, there has to be a connection between the performance management system and the value that people see in it. Communication to the managers, communication to the employees, sensitizing them so that they can see that value. Ensure that the process is objective and not subjective. If it becomes, people will not buy it in. People will not like it because they will see, they all know the people who are performing. And then all of a sudden now you are making it such subjective that people who are not performing are performing. So those expectations of employees in terms of the end result should be very clear. It should be very clear. So that's one way. And then, like I said, if you now start giving people 10 objectives, do you think people will achieve those objectives? Make it achievable. Provide the resources. That's another thing. Provide resources. If you don't provide resources, then people will not embrace it because there are no resources. So all those things that we learned in school, provision of resources, communication, training or sensitization of members, and then people have to see value. What is it that I'm getting out of this whole process? Then you will have people now appreciating it. I know it is easier said than done, but that is the only way. Then, above all, don't give up. If you give up, then you are done. Maybe Alande can tell us, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm meant to understand that at KRA right now, they have a very robust performance management system that, in a way, people have appreciated. Brother C.S. Alande.
Thank you, Kenya. And of course, I like the question of culture that our colleagues have asked. Culture is very, very important in any organization, and therefore, changing it is not an event, it's a process. One of the aspects is on performance. So the first thing is, you don't go into organization as a HR and say, I want to change, I want to introduce performance management, and then you're pushing people around, sign your contracts and all that. The first thing is that management must have a buy-in. Your top management must have a buy-in in the process. If they don't, you will fail from the beginning. The next thing, as you said, that the staff must have a buy-in. Tell them, why do we need to measure our performance and account for what we do? Let me tell you, people don't do, or when I say employees don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. In other words, they will do what you will measure at the end of the day. So what is it that you will measure? They will do that. But if you sit down saying that, some people will argue with you when you introduce performance management, that, we are grown-ups, we cannot just come here to see it, let us work and go. No, people do what you inspect, what you measure. They don't do what you expect. So top management need to buy that and say, this is the way to go. Let me tell you, if you don't measure people's performance, you'll have people who are just and doing very many things that do not have a direct link to turning around your organization. The moment you introduce performance and you follow through to ensure that 100%, like as is 100% of the people who are aware of this are not just aware, the 100% will do their performance contracts, and we measure. It is known that we measure. And once you get the results, the question is, what do you do about this? So if I've not performed, and people will see actually you take action, what I call consequence management, that has to happen. So that is how we manage it. And it's a very, very long process. So my colleague don't go in and take people around that you have to sign this. No, sit down and sell it. Let the people have a buy-in in the process. Yeah, I submit.
Okay, thank you. Management system in your organization, only 3 out of 10 employees work. 7 out of 10, according to research, 7 out of 10 will not be working. They'll just be lazing around. But when you put a performance management system in place, it is said, according to an effective performance management system, people will work 3 times more. So imagine where you have 100 people and they are working as if they are 300 people. And when I started, I also talked about leadership being champions. And that's what Alande is speaking about. that you need buy-in from top management, because if they don't champion your process, then you are bound to fail. When they champion, the employees on the process, and yours now is to support with the supervisors now partnering in the owning, championing and support, then you are good to go. It's 8 minutes to end of presentation.
Yes, Mr. Kenga, there's a question from John Maina. What if the person does not improve through the performance improvement programs, PAP?
Does not improve. PAP 1, PAP 2, the same, not improving. I don't like using this word, but you see, if I give you, if I'm in a bus, we are heading towards Mombasa, and then you don't want to sit, you're causing trouble in the bus. You see, it will get, I'm from Tuapa, we are going to Mombasa. It will get to Shanzu, and you are still not. If it gets to Bamburi, yes, you'll need to alert. So sanctions, follow procedure. Ask the person now, have a verbal talking. What is it that, why are you not performing? Because performance improvement also involves counseling. Why are you not improving? Counseling, coaching, those follow-ups. If those follow-ups are not, the weekly or daily follow-ups are not working as a supervisor, and it has failed, then have a verbal, tell the person, now you see, this is orange. It will become red. So right now, I'm not happy about this. Can you improve? If it does not improve, then you ask the person, why are you not improving? In writing, he explains himself. You follow those other sanctions that you have. And that's why it is very important that you have processes and procedures in terms of performance management system that clearly spells out, if this happens, what is it that we are going to do? We know, like for good performance, reward. But for bad performance, una yellow card unapewa kidogo hapo, naambiwa please improve. And the yellow card can be extended maybe depending on your timeline, 6 months, another 6 months, maybe after 2 years, it will mean now you start the process of sanctioning that particular employee. You know, we have to bite the bullet. But like I said, ensure that you do it within the confines of the law. If you move outside the law, then it could be very difficult for you in the Employment and Labor Relations Court.
All right, thank you very much. If there are no further questions, could you kindly allow me to invite the branch chair, Mr. Isaac Boyd, to share any remarks, and then would also invite Madam Vera to say a vote of thanks to our facilitator and our participants who made it to this discussion. Mr. Boyd?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, our moderator, Somoe. You have done justice to it. Thank you very much, Bonatuva. We had a discussion before then, and today was the day. thank you because you've done justice to the topic itself. Thank you very much to as well to CS Alande. I know we've come from a wrong way, and it is indeed a better way to say thank you for participating in today's forum. Now, just a quick one. We were to have coffee dates to actually today, 28. Unfortunately, we are still doing some logistics. We tentatively probably looking at 10th of March. That is the week, next week actually, on Friday. So we still looking at logistics on how to go about. We will wish that every person come the cheapest way possible. That we need all the HR professionals to come together. We sit together, just to have a discussion and probably clear a way forward on a few things here and there. I know we have several plans for this year. Those people in Cliffy, those people in Tana River, those people in Lamu. It has been a while since we actually interacted together. And Eastern, the part of 8 counties in Eastern part. Actually, it's a wider range. Thank you. For those people in Taita, we had a meeting yesterday. It was an online meeting. Thank you. If there is anyone who is here, we really appreciate that you participated in the meeting yesterday. It is a way to go. Let's all interact, have one-on-one discussion here and there. Where we find challenges, of course we will consult our seniors, look at how to solve them and for this case, I've seen former immediate chair Eli Nyangwezo. Can you say hi kindly? Eli?
Hello, Chair. How are you?
I'm good.
Good afternoon, colleagues. This is wonderful. I've gone through the training, and I want to, say something small about the trainer. Mr. Tuva Kenga was my lecturer at the Technical University of Mombasa, and he lectured me on the topic of reward management at that particular time. So I know you are on the able hand of the lecturer himself, Mwalimu Tuva Kenga. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Eli. That is nice. So, having said that, I think any other updates we will keep on interacting together, so we can allow the secretary to say a vote of thanks, and then we can close. I think it is 1 minute too. Thank you. Somewhere?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Eli. I wish to now invite Ms. Vera Ulwea to say a vote of thanks. Vera, karibu.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. And thank you very much, members, for creating time to attend this worthy forum and very insightful. Thank you, Madam Tuva. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us, just to sharpen our skills. As we say, iron sharpens iron, and we really appreciate your contribution. Thank you, CS Alande. Thank you, Eli, Martin, and Janet, everyone who's contributed. We really appreciate you taking your time. As the chair has said, we have quite a number of activities lined up for this year, just to bring back that vibrancy in Coast region. And on 10th, we are looking forward to seeing each and every one of you in our HR coffee date, so that we can just share and deliberate on how we can move forward as a team. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you. Thank you, Somoe, for this opportunity, and each and every one of us as we go back to our workplaces. I pray that God will bless all of us and bless the works of our hands. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members. And now you're free to leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
I told you there was a time I had started nikipanda staircase na sikia tumbo inachimbika. Hii staki. Nilitoka huko mimi staki.
Hata mimi
You take
staki.
lunch and then you go upstairs and then just by itself.
Maybe the issue ni my clothes, they don't fit well. I want to look good when I put on clothes. So hiyo ndio inanisumbua.
Change your clothes sizes.
Things like that. Not to even just have that confidence, like wherever and you feel good. But just kama uko hivi and alafu si unajua sisi as women, though I like the way how women are nowadays. They work so hard to maintain their bodies. See, unajua kitu ambacho ilikuwa I used to fear.